Well, good morning. You can hear me? So hopefully you've gotten checked out of your rooms or have dealt with your suitcases and luggage and everything. Welcome to Who is Your Wilson? Building an Apple IT Coalition. My name is Chris Hart, and I serve as the Enterprise Apple Systems Administrator at Florida State University. You can reach me at chart. Interesting things happen on Slack or whatever when somebody's having a conversation and they accidentally put the @ symbol and then they're discussing a chart. So I get all sorts of strange conversations and alerts. But you can reach me there. And I've also posted a set of these slides out on my GitHub site at Christopher T. Hart, and that's H-A-R-T, if you want to follow along. So some things we're going to cover this morning. I'll give you an outline here. The first 12 years from 2000 to 2012, what I call the Great Awakening that started in 2013, the year of MDM in 2021, and the present and the future. So as some other people come in here, I thought I'd just give you a little side trip real quick, and just in case you came to visit me and the part of the country that I'm from. So I live in Florida, where that star is there in the state. You can see I did a quick Google search the other day and found that if you started in your car in Pensacola, which is in the far western part of the Panhandle in North Florida, and you decide to drive all the way to Key West, Google claims you can get there in 13 hours. I don't know that that would be the case. You'd probably have to stop for gas and other breaks and things like that. But you could drive for 13 hours in our state and never leave the state. So there's this place about 4 miles from my house called Wakulla Springs, not Wakula Springs, but Wakulla Springs. That means mysterious waters. It was owned at one time by Edward Ball, and it was used as his hunting property, and he was married to a DuPont. So there's a lodge there on the property. In the left picture, you can see the spring bowl with the beach and the swimming area to the right side. The swim area just has a rope as the boundary, and sometimes the alligators like to sun themselves on the far shore while people are swimming in the swim area. So far, nobody has been attacked by an alligator in all these years. The spring is a consistent 68 degrees year-round, and the flow rate is about 400 million gallons of water per day. Just a side note, we had a water distribution company come and they wanted to set up shop in our county, and our county commissioners decided, that's fine, yeah, come build your place, that's great. Just one small caveat: you can bottle as much of our spring water as you want in our county or whatever, we just won't let you leave the county with it. So they decided not to build a water processing plant there. On the right side, you can see the dive platform, how it used to be back in the day. It used to have 3 levels to it. They've now since lowered it to 2 levels. However, if you were to dive off of that platform, you would probably risk more injury by your impact in the water by being 3 stories up versus 2 stories, because you're not going to hit the bottom of the spring. So Wakulla Springs is considered to be one of the deepest, largest freshwater springs in the world. The Spring Bowl Basin is 195 feet deep, but the underwater caves that feed the spring go down to 300 feet. We have signs all around our county. You'll be driving down a road and it'll say, "You're now passing over a cave that's 300 feet below you on the road," kind of thing. They've found mastodon, giant sloths, mammoth bones have also been recovered from the spring. Here's just a quick map. I know it's really small and tiny, but over all these decades, a group of cave divers recently linked all 38 miles of underwater caves that feed the spring. And if you were to come visit Tallahassee and you went to our State History Museum, you would get to meet Herman, who is our mastodon, who was recovered from Wakulla Springs back in the day. So tying this into the whole sort of Tom Hanks Castaway movie kind of thing, many films have been shot at Wakulla Springs. So if you're a fan of old Tarzan movies with Johnny Weissmuller, 2 of those movies were shot back in the 1950s. Here you can see on the left side them filming one of the Tarzan movies back in the 1950s. And the picture on the right is the palm tree where Tarzan would stand and do his famous Tarzan yell. Another movie with all new underwater thrills, as they put it on the poster, that was filmed at the Springs back in the day was The Creature Walks Among Us. Another one was Airport 77 with Jack Lemmon. So they filmed all the underwater scenes there at Wakulla Springs back in the day. And then finally, we have a film that I'm sure many of you have seen at some point possibly in your life. The Creature from the Black Lagoon was filmed at Wakulla Springs. All right, so what do you do when you feel like you're all alone, you're trying to do Apple IT support at your place of employment with only a volleyball to rely on for your feedback? So early on, I was asked by some coworkers to go talk to our president at our university. I asked, why did I need to go talk to the president? I'd only been in my job for a couple weeks at that time. And they told me that I needed to go tell the president that his hard drive and his Mac laptop had died, and there was no backup. What they didn't know was I had a previous relationship with our then president at the university, and so he knew who I was. So I went up to him, told him, I smiled, shook his hand, said, "I'm sorry, Mr. President, I've been told that your hard drive and your laptop died, and we don't have a backup for it." So he looked right back at me and he smiled. He goes, "Well, that's okay, Chris." He goes, "As long as our office manager's hard drive doesn't die on her computer, she has all the important documents for the university." So back then, I did a lot of support through Apple Remote Desktop, like a lot of us did. And if I can scroll up here. And during my first 12 years in my current position, I was only able to attend one free Apple authorized training that was offered down in South Florida that Apple worked out for me on my behalf. So during this time period, at some point, I joined the Mac Enterprise listserv that I believe started back sometime around 2004, possibly. In researching this aspect, I thought it was interesting that Richard Glasser, who hosts the monthly Mac meeting out in Utah and will often post on the Mac Enterprise list, I believe he posted the second message that's in the archive on the listserv. I thought that was sort of interesting. And then remember that thing called Internet Relay Chat back in the day that some of us used to do? Well, I would go and hang out and lurk in that space back in the day to try and learn from the people that knew a lot more than I did at the time. And then in 2008, I completed my PhD at Florida State University in the College of Information. So what I didn't know was that while I was on this deserted IT island, I had no idea that there was some guy named Greg that was working on something in 2009 called Monkey. Who knew at the time? So the first positive steps that you can take possibly when trying to build an Apple IT coalition occurred in 2009. There was a central group of IT people at our campus that was formed, and they're called the Information Technology Partnership Program. We refer to them as ITAP. The ITAP group was formed to help assess and assist different departments around our campus to provide them with central IT resources and services. So, and then early in 2009, I was asked by the ITAP group to fill in and get the Apple IT issues addressed in a primarily macOS department. I was told the afternoon before of what all was going to occur, went over to the department, and then later on in the day, I started traveling around the department just to see what they had. So I went down to the first floor, poked my head inside of what was essentially a janitor's broom closet, and I encountered this computer. And then I took another picture from the side of it. Didn't have the side cover on it, didn't have the front cover on it. And then if you look closer, here you can see the CPU heatsink. It was being held on, the fan was being held on by two rubber bands. So, and I guess the positive of this situation was the fan was actually spinning. So I determined the purpose of the computer over a short course of time, and I found out that this computer was hosting all the dean's office important files for that department. I showed the pictures to the dean of the program, and the response that I received was, well, which fruit-flavored password do I use to access that computer? Is it banana, orange, or grape? And then what I shortly discovered was that each staff member in the dean's office used the same password that matched the server volume that they needed access. Good grief, what's going on here? So what do you do when onboarding a new department and you're beginning to try and build your Apple IT coalition? So one of the first things you probably want to do is perform some kind of IT assessment. The next thing you want to do is provide the IT assessment results to the dean or the director of that area, probably. I've seen prior IT directors go into a new department and not do this, and then every internal IT service blows up and dies, and then the dean or director wants to know, well, why didn't you tell me? And so finally, use the IT assessment results then to guide your future decisions. So the next step towards building an Apple IT coalition at our university occurred probably in 2009. The math department approached our classroom and labs group to inquire about switching to macOS devices. And this resulted in the establishment of 300 iMacs that power our campus-wide math testing environment to this day. I would estimate that the environment impacts about 10,000 students that cycle through those computers in a given year. So at this point, I just wanted to pause really quickly and give a quick tribute to Charles Edge. Charles passed away back in April of 2024. And while I never got to meet Charles, I did read his numerous blog posts and acquired the first edition of his book entitled Enterprise Mac Administrator's Guide, shortly after it was published in 2009. So this book is just it was a huge help to me back in the day, and it was 500 pages of just amazing information. So what are you going to do when you feel like you're stuck on a deserted IT island with only a volleyball for feedback? Well, the option I decided to pick was, why not invite people to my island? So, another colleague of myself who just since retired back in October, who was over our classroom lab area of Mac devices, he and I discussed the idea, and we came up with this idea to host a monthly Mac user group meeting. So in 2010, we started meeting. We met in person until the pandemic and then went virtual. We hold our meeting monthly via Microsoft Teams right now. And we try to meet still in person once or twice a year, along with meeting virtually. And we've always remained consistent, so if you wanted to come and attend our meeting or whatever, we've always had the meeting on the first Friday of the month at 10 a.m. So then something happened back in 2010. I don't know if any of you remember this or are old enough to remember it, but there's this thing that in 2010 called the iPad that came out, and you could buy one for $499. We went to our management and we asked for some kind of way to manage these new devices or whatever, and we were kindly declined. So sometime in 2010, we suffered one of our first macOS IT intrusions. It turned out there was a Mac Pro tower in the department that I had previously assisted with, and that earlier that had an unsecured SSH port or service running on it, missing 2-year-old Microsoft Office security update on it, and then a dictionary attack occurred by a bad outside actor. And so this resulted in a DDoS attack from this one Mac that took down the entire campus network for probably 6 hours. So, fast forward to 2011. Now we have the iPad 2. It's faster, it's thinner, it's lighter. Again, we kindly asked for a way to manage them, and we were kindly declined. So in 2011, and prior to that, Penn State University started hosting this conference that we're all at. And clearly you can see from 2011 welcome slide that the news had not reached most of the country or Canada yet. And so at some point around this time period, I had set up 2 Mac Minis and a Sonnet rack. Maybe you did the same thing. So we established our first open directory environment, and woohoo, We were doing MCX with a primary and a secondary OD. So then again in 2012, the conference expanded to include attendees from Canada and one attendee from Switzerland. So there's one pinpoint on that map. And I was told that the person that was here from Switzerland in 2012 is also here again this year. So in 2012, we suffered another setback. We had been fostering a relationship with a large Apple department on our campus, only to have a few central IT members attempt to tell the department how to spend their IT budget. So this caused the department to walk away and avoid central IT for 3 years. So everyone knows who the Borg are, correct? Hopefully. So the Borg's perspective was resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. All right? So I would never suggest that you attempt to use this approach when you're trying to build a coalition of the willing. Taking this approach will just have the exact opposite effect, in fact. I found over the years that people in departments don't tend to like mandates. So later I'll provide a future slide with one possible exception to this approach. So at some point along this line, we also started using Deploy Studio in our environment. We're an extremely decentralized environment. So we had workflows all over the place back then. And so then about 2 weeks before I attended the 2013 Mac Admins Conference here at Penn State, I began testing this thing called Monkey. So I used a spare Mac Mini that was about 3 years old to host our entire Monkey environment. And I couldn't wrap my head around the concept of Monkey manifests and how I was going to architect the manifest structure to address our very decentralized environment. So, the Great Awakening. I was finally given permission to attend the 2013 conference. I was on my way to Atlanta, to Detroit, to State College, as there's no way to get to State College without 2 layovers from Tallahassee. And you can see from the welcome slide in 2013, there's finally now a pinpoint in the state of Florida. So I guess I represented the entire state of Florida that year at the conference. And I'm proud to say that this year, I believe we have 11 of us from Florida State University that are here at the conference. So I wanted to take this point in the presentation to give a big shout out to Joe Wallard. So I don't believe that Joe is still active in this specific community, but back in 2013, I just happened to sit near him during the opening day of the 2013 conference. It turned out at the end of the day that we were both staying at the Nittany Lion Inn at that time, and we rode the shuttle bus back to the hotel. So I started a conversation up with Joe, and I said, if I were to buy you supper tonight in the hotel restaurant, could I sit here and pick your brain about Monkey? He said, oh, I'd love to. And so he agreed to do that, and so I sat there with him in the hotel restaurant at the Nittany Lion Inn and picked his brain for over 2 hours probably. And I probably learned more than I had in the last 4 or 5 years at that point. So if you're new to doing Apple support, or this is your first time that you've attended this conference, don't be afraid to ask the various attendees questions. I was always told that the only dumb question is the one that you don't ask. So I was overwhelmed that year when I came to the conference, and at just the amazing wealth of Apple IT information that was there that year at the conference, I felt like I was drinking from a fire hose. And I also started to realize how far behind we were in the world and how in the world were we ever going to catch up. So Sam Keeley presented back in 2013 on how to grant your macOS users more freedoms on their devices, and the presentation was so popular the conference committee asked him to repeat the session later on in the conference. And you can go see that session presentation still on the resources page. So Sam talked about borrowing a Windows concept by creating a power users group on the macOS devices. And Sam was accomplishing this by modifying the Etsy authorization space in the macOS to provide more freedom to the standard user. I went back after the conference and went to work on establishing what Sam had talked about in his presentation in our environment. And it was a success, and it was one of the building blocks to help us move forward and to try and catch up. So then along about that same time period, another big game changer for our environment was based on a presentation that was given by Andrina Kelly at the 2013 JAMF User Conference. In her presentation, Andrina described how she was getting users to do your job without letting them know it. And Andrina had designed an account elevation solution that was very elegant. And Andrina still has the info related to this project on her GitHub site. And Andrina also relied on some components to make this happen that were created by Kyle Brockman, who also still has parts of this project and things available on his GitHub site as well. So I was interested in creating an account elevation solution for our Mac OS devices, but we weren't a Jamf shop. So most of that previous stuff had been created to operate in the Jamf world, and that wasn't who we were. And so about 9 years ago, I was at the beach on vacation. I live about 10 minutes from the beach. And for a week, I sat there in the beach house that my wife's family had rented at the time and managed to create a much simpler self-service account elevation solution that worked with our Monkey environment. And I called it temporary admin access. So the currently logged in user's account is added to the admin group, and then a countdown timer starts in the background, and 30 minutes later, the user's account is removed from the admin group and they become a standard user again. The user can abuse it and run it as many times as they want. I've set up basic logging so the logs can be reviewed, and an event is also generated in our Monkey Report portal as well. It's not perfect, and it's not as elegant as Andrina's was, but it did what we needed, and we still use it to this day all these years later. So if you're looking for some type of account elevation solution, then you might want to also check out the SAP Privileges app, which is out on GitHub, and you can do some similar things with it. So our RT security team will send out multiple alerts via email, like this example, on a daily basis. This is an example of one of them from Google Chrome from back in February 28th of 2024. It's not as much the overview that I wanted to point out here as it is the section towards the bottom. Have you ever bothered to read the recommendations section of one of these security alerts? Maybe you haven't. Talks about establish and maintain a vulnerability management process. Okay, we were doing that. Perform automated application patch management. Okay, we were doing that as well. Remediate detected vulnerabilities. We were doing that as well. Why I really started to use the power group concept was that I wanted to create the temp admin account elevation solution so that I could apply the principle of least privilege in our environment. So the bottom recommendation states that you should conduct general computing activities from the user's primary non-privileged account. So I didn't want to lock down the users as standard users without giving them the freedom of the power users group and the ability to get out of a catch-22 situation by elevating their standard user account. I honestly believe that applying the principle of least privilege has made our environment much more secure than it has been. We did this many years ago. So one of the next ways that I've been able to build coalitions at our campus of the willing is just through simple handshake agreements. I haven't seen the need for complicated agreements that usually contain a lot of red tape. And I find that complicated agreements that contain lots of red tape and legalese don't usually assist in building trust very quickly. So using the department from the earlier example that walked away from central IT and didn't communicate with us for about 3 years, sometime around 2015 there was an IT personnel change in that department, and we started to rebuild the relationship there. So the department in question was interested in testing out our Monkey solution for their Mac OS devices. And we started getting their Mac OS devices onboarded into our Monkey environment. And that specific departmental relationship now has flourished, and we now have 414 of their Mac OS devices in our Monkey repository. So what are some tools that you can use to assist you in building a coalition of the willing? Well, one thing you can do is provide enterprise Apple services and solutions to augment the existing departmental capabilities of that department. Undertake self-improvement via in-service trainings related to Apple IT, like attending this conference. And then you can also gain additional skills via various IT certifications. Maybe find an Apple IT member to mentor or apprentice under. And then finally, maybe you could attain a higher ed degree beyond what you currently have, possibly. So, just like Tom Hanks, even though I had started having monthly Mac user group meetings, I had built up some connections with some of our departments, and I had made enterprise Apple services available, there was still something missing. So, the Mac Admin Slack community started up in May 12th of 2015. And I joined on August 11th of 2015. So how many in the room are members of the Mac Admin Slack community that are here today? Vast majority. Great. So if you're not a member of the Mac Admin Slack community, simply go to the macadmins.org site and click on the Join Slack Now on the button right there. So free to join. Try and do that. It's made a world of difference for me. So I know this slide may look a little busy, but bear with me for just a second. So I just wanted to put some of the stats up here for the Mac Slack admins community. These were taken not just the other night or anything, so they may have changed slightly since then. But I mean, we're talking about 68,380 people that have signed up and 9,491 that have been active on a monthly basis. I don't know where you're going to find that on the Windows side of things and stuff. It's an amazing resource, so please take advantage of it. I included some of these others, sort of the headers of some just a couple channels, about 6 channels. I mean, if you're interested in doing something with Auto Package, I mean, there's 4,755 people that are members of that channel. Adobe, anybody got Adobe in their environment or whatever? Well, there's 3,870 people on that channel that you can go hang out, lurk on that channel, post something. Maybe somebody else is having the same problem with Adobe that you are. I noticed that Richard Glasser just posted the other day. They were having a conversation about Adobe and things like that. So Jamf Nation, lots of you are Jamf users in this environment, right? There's 18,000 people that are on the Jamf Nation channel. Microsoft Office 365, 3,566. Mosile, we're a Mosile shop, so there's 3,156 people on that channel. And the Monkey channel, there's 4,896 people that are members of that channel. So my background is in libraries. I also started doing IT stuff a long time ago as well, but I just wanted to take you through sort of a scenario of how you could use maybe a scenario, an issue that might pop up in your environment, and then how you could use the Mac Slack admin's environment to search and possibly solve your problem or get closer to a solution. So in this scenario, let's say you've gone to the Office Reset website and selected the For Mac Admins link where the arrow is pointing to there on the website. You'll quickly notice that version 1.9.1 was conveniently split apart into separate downloads. However, if you go to the site also, you'll see where there's a newer version out called 2.0 Beta 1 that's listed below the 1.9 in that area of the website, but it's not split apart into separate packages. Now, we've set this all up in our Monkey environment so that we can turn those reset packages into self-service items so the user can go in and reset their Outlook. They can reset any one of the apps in the Office suite type of thing. So when you go and before you do your searching or your posting in the Mac Admin Slack community, you might want to look at the channel that you're going to search in or that you're interested in posting a question possibly to. And first thing you should probably do is look at and see if there's any pinned items in that channel. A lot of times the people that post a lot in those channels will pin items into those channels. And so the answer that you're looking for might be in that list of pinned items right there. You might not even have to search other than just scrolling down through the pinned items list. So in this example, I've selected the Microsoft Teams channel, and there's 24 pinned items. So we can see here where the top 2 pinned items were recently posted by Robert Hammond and by Tony Young. And those might answer your questions as far as what you had a question about for Microsoft Teams, or they might not. So then if you were going to go in and search, there's some different operators that you would use to do your search. So our search term that we're going to look for, because I wanted to set this up for Monkey, is that I'm going to use is no package. So NOPKG is what I'm interested in looking for in the Microsoft Teams channel. And so where do I want to search? I want to search in : Microsoft-Teams. And so that's going to tell it to do that search for no package inside of the Microsoft Teams channel. So the second of the 2 results that come back if you were to perform that search look like the one that we're probably interested in. And it was posted by Pat G. Mack. And Pat G. Mack says, I still have this in my shell history, make package info, .. no package, yada, yada, yada kind of stuff. The information that looks like we're interested in here. So, and it also contains the word no package in it. So that's good. So if we dig into the thread of that conversation that was taking place, back when this was posted about 3 months ago or so, we can see that Pat G. Mack has posted the info that involves the make package info command to build a no package item for Monkey. So we would just need to extract the post install script by using something like suspicious package utility to grab the script that we need. I did this very thing for each of the separate Microsoft apps, and then I made them available as a self-service item in our Monkey environment. Problem solved. However, please realize that your mileage may vary when trying to reset and fix issues with the Microsoft Teams app reset due to all the changes that have taken place with the Microsoft Teams app going back to October. So, and then another place that you could search. If you feel like you're all alone at your university or whatever, you have the Mac admin Slack with 68,000 plus people to try and pick their brains from. There's also the Jamf Nation community site as well. You don't have to be a member per se to go there and search for information. Sometimes you'll find the answer there that you wouldn't have found in the Slack and vice versa. So, on to the next part of things that happened at our university over the years. So as best I can tell by looking back through the history, it appears that Apple School Manager became a thing in 2016. So at our institution, Apple initially set up our ASM portal without central IT involvement. Apple architected our ASM portal to primarily function with a single department that they had sold hundreds of iPads to. And Apple kept making advancements with MDM while we were stuck still using VPP vouchers and redemption codes for iOS devices, as we still had no way to manage our iOS devices centrally. So what happens when you have a service void or a vacuum? Well, we had no central MDM service offering at that time. So I would say that we were suffering from what I refer to as the two-legged stool condition. A stool with 2 legs can't stand up on its own very well. So we had Apple School Manager, and we had lots of Apple devices, but we had nothing to point them at. So we were missing the MDM leg to the stool at that time. So what happens when you have that void is you end up with this. Since we had a void and no central MDM service to offer departments, departments started doing the following. Many of our departments had their own Apple customer number. Some of these departments would approach Apple and provide their Apple customer number, and Apple treated them like Oprah, giving stuff away. You get an ASM portal. You get it. Everybody look under your seat. You all get a free ASM portal kind of approach. But wait, there's more. Since we had no central MDM service to offer, many of the departments ended up with their own internal MDMs. We ended up with lots of different MDM environments all over our campus. So I wish somebody had told me this a long time ago, as it would have saved a lot of heartache at our university. So hopefully this information will save somebody in the future, possibly, from the same fate. So I reached out to Apple at this time, and I demanded a database dump of all the Apple customer numbers that were associated with our university. Apple complied, and then I was able to go into our Apple School Manager portal and then edit the MDM server assignment and then the customer numbers area of our ASM portal. If you attempt to add an Apple customer number and are prevented, then that would mean that the customer number is already associated with another ASM portal. After you add all your available Apple customer numbers to your ASM portal, this should prevent Apple from just handing out new ASM portals. So another approach to building some coalitions is we've been able to build our coalition by also having our technicians move up and over to other departments. So we train them, then they go into some other department, they've seen how we've done things centrally or whatever, and then they take that information with them, and it spreads through that way. We've also had other IT personnel who would move between departments and request to use our Apple Enterprise services in their new department that they had just moved to. And we've had IT directors that might leave the university, and then central IT would come in and assist the various departments when they were without an IT person, and we would supply them with our central Apple services and solutions as well. So the next major shift happened in 2019 to 2020 area time frame. We got lucky as we had moved our Monkey environment to new hardware prior to the pandemic. And prior to this, our Monkey environment was walled off from the outside world and required off-campus macOS devices to connect via our VPN environment to get updates. And we moved our Monkey instance to a Microsoft IIS box environment because that was what was offered to me. And amazingly, it works. So one thing you just need to keep in mind if you're going to go that route is you need to remember to address your MIME types in your IIS instance. And as Greg usually says to people who post messages into the Monkey channel on Slack, the Monkey server is just a web server when it comes down to it. So when we were setting up our new Monkey repo on IIS, it turned out that JAMP has some really good instructions on how to set up a file share distribution point using IIS. So if you find yourself in the situation where Microsoft IIS is made available to run your Monkey repo, hopefully this documentation will help you. As I said on the prior slide, you just want to make sure that you get your MIME type set up correctly. So, does anyone in the room have the powers and abilities to train a cat to walk backwards? Anybody? No? I don't either. But sometimes you're going to find yourself when you're using Monkey, if you're a Monkey shop, where you need to roll something backwards. So oftentimes I'll reach out to a certain person, I'll be like, we got ahead with this update or whatever, I released it too soon or whatever, I need to go backwards. Well, Monkey by default doesn't want to go backwards, it wants to just take everything forwards. So I just wanted to put this slide in here so that if you are running Monkey and you find yourself in the situation where you need to go backwards, then Greg has this great blog post from back in 2018 on his blog site that explains how to use Monkey to reverse or downgrade a piece of software. In his example, he uses Firefox, but you can just take Firefox and substitute it for pretty much any other application that you might want to use. Another quick thing that's not necessarily specific to Monkey, but can apply to other areas that I wanted to mention was Vaughn found and posted out on GitHub back in March, I believe, that when Apple released macOS 14.4, they added a deprecation warning when installing bundle packages. The now older non-flat Adobe Admin Console packages are an example of this. This package may be incompatible with a future version of macOS, is what the deprecation warning says. So please be aware of that in your environment. If you've got other repositories that have applications that you're installing from onto your fleet of devices. On the Monkey side, for those of you running Monkey, Greg recently created an additional Python script that's called Monkey Bundle Package Finder that is located in the Mac admin scripts in the GitHub repo out there. And if you're using Monkey, then you might want to run the script against your repo to determine if you have any bundle style packages in your Monkey repository. So I ran this against our Monkey repo and I identified 13 items with bundle style packages. Almost all of the items were packages that I would probably never deploy to any device in my fleet nowadays. It should be noted that your mileage may vary when it comes to your Adobe apps and your Monkey repo. It looks like Greg didn't design the Python script to necessarily look for certain ones of the Adobe packages when he wrote his script. So if you want to address your bundle style packages, you could set the maximum OS and your package info files in your Monkey environment to 14.99. Or another option that you have, option 2 is, if you don't need any more, you could possibly delete them. So I just want to talk very quickly about Monkey Report. So I finally established our Monkey Report portal in December 2020, and unlike our Monkey repo that runs on Microsoft IIS, our Monkey Report portal runs on Red Hat. So this was the single best IT decision I've made in the past 24 years, and I have no idea why I waited so long before I stood it up. I've delegated out access to participating departments via some AD security groups, so we have our Monkey Report portal tied into our Active Directory. And this past fall, one of our persons in our, back this past fall, when we had our in-person meeting for our monthly Mac user group meeting, I actually designed a scavenger hunt for the people that attended, so that I could try to get them to find pieces of information inside of the Monkey Report portal that they might be interested in finding for their devices for their departments. Here you can see the growth over time that we currently have 1,982 devices enrolled in our Monkey Report portal since about December of 2020. And so since 2013, here's the progress with all of the departments that we've been able to onboard and add to our coalition. So I believe there's 55 units that we've been able to add just through handshakes, not a lot of legalese, not a lot of red tape. Just here's what we have to provide. We're here to augment and add to your environment that you already have. And so that's the progress that we've made so far. So in 2021 was finally the year that we got a central MDM solution. Woo! Previously, I had been deploying profiles to macOS devices via Monkey. However, that came to an end when Apple stopped us from being able to use the profiles command. And we still had, up until that point, no central MDM solution for iOS devices. And in January 2021, we selected Mosile as our central MDM solution. And in April of 2021, we started enrolling Apple devices into our Mosile MDM environment. And since April 1st of 2021, we've enrolled 2,610 devices into our Mosile environment. We estimate that this number will grow by another 1,000 to 2,000 Apple devices over the next year or two. And here you can see a quick breakdown of devices that I've gleaned from the CSV file that you can dump out of your ASM portal going back to 2017. I could have dumped it back further, but I figured, any device that's back past 2017 is probably not going to run any functional version of the Mac OS that's being patched still today. And as I ran these numbers recently, I needed to do it to try and determine some type of estimate of the numbers of Apple devices for a future project that we're undertaking. And based on the current numbers for 2024, we are on pace to acquire about 1,210 Apple devices this year. So here's a visual diagram of how our environment is currently configured. I don't think that there's anything out of the ordinary with our setup. I've tried to keep it extremely simple and not over-engineer it. We have auto package feeding our Monkey environment. Our macOS devices are communicating with Monkey and Mosile NDM environments. We are getting the Monkey Tools package installed during the DEP process via the Enterprise Install Applications MDM command that is supported by Mosile. And whereas our iOS, iPadOS, tvOS, and visionOS devices are communicating with our Mosile environment. So remember earlier when I said don't attempt the Borg approach? Well, things happened and changed after I submitted my original presentation proposal. In February, we had another IT event occur at our university. The IT event didn't impact any of the macOS devices, luckily. And luckily, we had CrowdStrike in place, and CrowdStrike to the rescue, and they were able to contain the fallout. So, exceptions to the Borg approach. I still wouldn't suggest that you ever take this approach, but you might be able to use this approach if, a big if, you're the president or the vice president of your university or corporation. So, are there any presidents or vice presidents present in the room today? No, there aren't. Again, I would avoid this approach, even if you are the president or the provost or vice president of your university or corporation. So, 2024 present and future. Our provost recently announced a move towards consolidation of IT positions into the central IT department. This initiative aims to position the university towards a more secure and sustainable technology environment while aligning our investments and overall campus strategy. So I just wanted to speak quickly about trust. So in this visual, you have some very key components of trying to build trust. Leading up to this time, I've had over a decade to be able to build trust with some of these departments. That's not going to be the case now going forward. We're going to have to be able to, from a central IT perspective, build trust much more quickly with these departments as we go forward, right? So in order to build trust, you need competence, integrity, consistency, availability, loyalty, decision-making, fairness, follow-through, discretion, openness, constructive intent, and accurate self-assessment. So as I said before, this announcement is going to greatly speed up the onboarding process compared to the past 24 years that I've been at the university. And we're going to have to build trust quickly. So here I just wanted to list a couple of some of the tools that we happen to use at our university that I've used over the past. And I'll leave that up there just for a second, but these are things that from auto package to Monkey Fax, Nomad, on and on and on for some of the different tools that we've used to accomplish the work at our university. So a lot of times when you have a new employee that'll come join the university and they're trying to do Apple stuff or find their way with Apple, one of the first places I'll point them to is the Penn State conference resource page. So just a massive resource. I can't believe of any other kind of training site that you could possibly send somebody to with all the different options that are out there, along with the resources archive part of the site. So here you have slide decks, videos going back to 2010 in many cases. So 14 years, and in a couple weeks, these presentations from this year's conference will be added to it. So just a wealth of information that's available at your fingertips to go look at whenever you want to, or to point somebody towards if they want to learn or know something about a possible topic that's been discussed here at the conference. Another great site that I rely on constantly is Rich Trouton's GitHub scripts site. So, if you're not great at scripting or whatever, guess what? There's a chance that Rich has already created a script for his environment, and you might be able to go there and download it and then modify it to work in your environment. And you might not have to know everything about creating the script from ground zero, but you can take it and then possibly modify it to fit the needs for it to work at your institution. So, and then another good blog site that's cropped up over the last several years is the Mr. Macintosh blog. The site's really on it, keeps up to date. I mean, Rich Trouton has his Flounder blog site as well. I mean, there's lots of places out there. So as we finish up here, or get towards the end, I wanted to close out my presentation and pass along a few words of wisdom by those that have, words of wisdom that have served me well over the last 24 years. First of all, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. All right, so what does this mean? Maybe it's okay not to solve every single possible scenario related to the project that you're working on. You don't have to achieve 100% possibly. It's okay not to get an A+, I guess. Just like when I was trying to wrap my head around how I was going to architect the monkey manifest structure for our university, I finally had to simply start with one common manifest that all of our devices got. I mean, that was terrible in many situations because I had no granularity at all whatsoever, but it got things going in a positive direction. And we still use that same common manifest as a nested manifest still to this day that I created back in 2013. And then our monkey manifest structure just grew organically from that point. So next, there's a very popular IT training framework that likes to use the phrase, start where you are. That's fine, but how do you know if you're going forward? I mean, you could be thinking that you're going forward, but you're going in circles. And many times you can chart a course forward if you simply look at the historical data and events that brought you to where you're attempting to start from. So, as Winston Churchill once said, those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And as Albert Einstein has said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So, what are the 3 words that people are most afraid to say? I don't know. It was very interesting. Earlier this year, we had an IT town hall at our university with a leadership summit. And the session featured our provost, the head of our research department, and the head women's soccer coach at Florida State as we won the most recent Division I soccer title. And someone submitted a question from the audience that was made up of all of us in IT on the campus and posed the question to the 3 leaders on the stage. The question was something like, what is the best advice that you could offer that has served you well from a leadership perspective? Our head of research answered and was echoed by our provost and the head women's soccer coach, and she responded by saying, don't be afraid to say, I don't know. And then since I'm from Florida, we still have lots of orange groves in Florida, even though we don't have as many as we used to. One final word of wisdom I would give you is, when you're trying to build your coalition of the willing, always think about, in the back of your mind, in that little inner voice, is the juice really worth the squeeze? And then to close, I'd like to thank profusely the people in this composite photo here. These people and many more that I couldn't fit onto this slide have assisted me and answered my questions over the years. That feedback and input and solutions that they've offered have had a huge positive impact on myself, our staff, and our users at our university. And then a huge shout out to Ken W., who I just met the other night at Tussey Mountain under extremely strange circumstances. Ken W. is one of the most compassionate, caring, and understanding human beings I've ever encountered. And Ken mentioned this to a few of us while we were standing around my car out at Tussey Mountain. And so I just wanted to echo his thoughts that he said to us while we were out there. So when we go to eat lunch later today, go around and thank the people that have helped us, that have helped provide the food, that have cleaned up after us when we go in there to eat lunch a little bit later. Appreciation is free, and it can go a long, long way. So, and with that, we still have some time left. I've got the QR code here on the screen. You can hopefully scan. It won't rickroll you like Greg did several years ago, but should take you to the feedback area. I've also gotten the shortened feedback URL listed there as well, and I've got a set of the slides in PDF format that are out on my GitHub site listed there too. I wanted to do one last thing before we get to questions really quick here. So I've got this volleyball here. I would give away the small one, but it won't hold air, so I don't want to give somebody a miniature Wilson volleyball that won't hold air. But this one will. If you are flying back, I do have a needle, so I can get the air out of the volleyball so you can then put it in your suitcase or your luggage or whatever to fly back to where you're going. But I would like to give it away to, first of all, so there's some things that I want to say as far as we have people here in the audience that are from Florida State University. So I'm not going to give it out to you guys. Sorry. Also, if you're from Penn State, I'm sorry, I'm not going to probably give it to you guys because you didn't have to travel that far to get here. But I would like to try and give it away to somebody, first of all, who this is their first time that they've come to the conference. Okay, so that's the first thing. So how many people here in the audience, this is your first time coming to the conference? All right, so keep your hands up. Now we're going to have to figure out, so how many of you have been doing, you're very new to this, be honest, you're very new to this, you haven't been doing Apple support for a really long time kind of thing, and stuff like that. And now I wanted to sort of, this might be an ageism thing, maybe I shouldn't do this, but I wanted to give it to somebody young, not sorry about us people that are older in the room. I do qualify for AARP. Also, my wife signed us up for it. So those of you remaining with your arms up, so we've got maybe 3 of you or so. So I don't know, how are we going to get this down to a fight for the final 3? Yeah. I went to Penn State, is that eliminated? You can come up afterwards or whatever, and we'll figure it out or whatever, okay? All right, so we'll do that. So don't leave, and we'll figure it out between the 3 of you. But I just wanted to do that. So any questions that you might have, I'll do my best to try and answer them. Or I might say I don't know. But if I do say I don't know, I'll probably be, I try to be the kind of person that with my library background, I'll go and find the answer to your question as quickly as I can, and I'll get you that information. Any questions? Oh, hang on. I've never gotten to do this, and I'm not gonna. I don't want to throw and hit somebody, but I'm not very good at throwing.
It's okay.
Huh? Okay. Here.
So you said you deployed a temporary admin through Jamf?
No, we deployed, we're a monkey shop. So,
okay, you deployed it through Monkey.
So Andrina had written that back in 2013 for Jamf, and she presented that back at the Jamf conference in 2013, and she used some of the information and stuff that Kyle Brockman had also created to make that all function. And hers is very elegant. She had it pop up a website from what I recall. People would enter their information and everything that would justify the reason why they needed to become an admin. The way ours works is much less detailed and things like that. I tried to keep it very simple And it's just a no package file on our Monkey environment, which is set up to be self-service or optional in our Monkey environment. And so the users, we mainly advertise it out to our laptop users because we don't want them to go off somewhere and then get stuck in a catch-22 somewhere. Or we also provided it way back when because we needed a solution. We wanted to run our users as standard users, but we also allow our users at our university to use their FSU-owned device for personal reasons. And so you get stuck in that catch-22 where every one of these users has their own home personal printer, right? And so they would take their work laptop home, want to set up their home personal printer to be able to print to, but they needed to be an admin to install the driver aspect to set up the printer. And so by them being able to run the temporary admin solution, they were then now an admin. They could download the printer driver from the vendor that they bought a printer for and then be able to install that successfully. And so then 30 minutes later, they would just be pulled back out of the admin group and go back to their standard user status. You know, there's not any kind of bells or whistles or anything that go off for the user's perspective. All of this happens behind the scenes. In fact, you wouldn't see any changes really unless you had like the system preferences or the system settings open with the users and groups pane visible to see that it was moving them between being a standard user and an admin user. And so like I said, they can go in and they can abuse it. But that's happened very rarely, but if they were to do that, then we can pull the log files from that machine and see how many times they ran it. It doesn't tell me what they did when they did run it. It's not that extensive, but then we can share that with the user and say, you know, look, we noticed you ran this 10 times or whatever and you never communicated with us. When they do go to run it, it pops up an alert box. And it does ask them to send us an email message, a very brief email message to our distribution list that we have, just describing why they needed to do it. And if they don't do that, then a lot of times I'll reach out to the IT person in the department and say, hey, we just noticed in our Monkey Report portal there was an event generated where somebody ran the temporary admin solution, but we never got an email message that said why they needed to run it. And so if we didn't get the email message, then I'll reach out to the person in that department, or if it's a department we 100% support, then I would reach out to that user and find out what was going on. Not to chastise them or anything like that, but we try to operate like, you know, a rising tide raises all ships. So if they can tell me why they had a problem, then chances are there's probably somebody else in our fleet of devices that's having that exact same problem, but I'm not clairvoyant. I can't sit at my computer and just say, I wonder if so-and-so off in that far-flung department is having an issue with this. But if they'll tell me, then I can fix it for them, and then that's going to fix it for everybody else. And so that's the way it's worked. If they don't want to comply with the way we've asked for that solution to operate, then we can just simply stop advertising it out to their device. And then they don't have access to it. And then that'll get them back to the table to have a conversation and say, well, this is what happened the time before, you know, how can we stop that from happening this time? Can you just communicate with us? I mean, because that was the whole reason why I created the solution, was to increase communication, not to decrease communication. So, and like Andrina said in her presentation, she's trying to get her users to do their job, you know, her job for, you know, for her kind of thing, by them being able to operate that way. And we wanted to come up with a 50-50 kind of compromise here between, we want you to run as a standard user, and it's come in very handy because, I mean, there was one time where I had a user that reached out to me and word finally made it across the campus from a department, and they were like, hey, Chris, you need to reach out to this user, you know, they're having some kind of problem on their computer, and I did. I started talking to the lady, and she's like, oh, I didn't mean to click on this thing, you know, all this stuff just started popping up everywhere, and it's like, it's okay, it's okay. So what's going on right now? Well, I called Apple, and Apple's helping me remotely. I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, because I can't just call Apple and have them, you know, help me remotely, and I'm supposed to be in charge of all this. So I'm not sure if Apple is really helping you or not. Can I remote to your machine? Oh, sure, come, let me, you know, come on in. So I remoted into Lay's machine, and the bad actors had already gotten her to download Log Me and Rescue. Then they went in and had her open up the activity monitor, or they opened it up on her behalf and just ran it. And then they started telling her, oh, look at all these charts and graphs and all these things. This is all bad stuff that's happening on your computer. If you'll just give us your credit card, we can fix all this and make it go away. Well, luckily she never gave them her credit card. and I had gotten involved by that point. So obviously I shut off LogMeIn Rescue, quit out of the activity monitor, but that could have gotten a lot worse if she had been running as an admin user. So they wouldn't have had to ask her, for a lot of other information and stuff if she hadn't been running as a standard user in that situation. So
Do you run into that problem often, since you have that?
not too often, but like I said, also, we started running all our users as standard users a long time ago, but I was only able to do that because I've supported our president at the university since 2000, all of them except for one. And all of those presidents except for that one have used an Apple device. And so also our provost, all of our provosts have had Apple devices as well. So I've been able to set them up. We run our president and our provost as standard users. They have access to the temporary admin solution, but then I use that when we would go out and make these connections with these other departments to say, hey, let's get on board here and let's try to get your users off of being admins on their devices. This is how we run the president and the provost. Not even your dean is above those people in the organizational structure of our university. And so that's how we've been able to make progress along the lines. So, and it's just about try to be consistent. So that's really worked well, this consistency. So.
Okay. This isn't a question. It's just more of a, I guess, commentary. What I did in the past and what I still continue to do is I actually identify what I'd like to call tethers on campus. I guess standard users, people that I can trust to say, hey, can you help me out or help this department out when we're doing something? I'll just give you a case point. When we move on the Windows side, we move from on-prem email, enterprise email, we moved to Google hosting, and then people were still married to their Outlook, so they had the Google App Sync, now known as Google Workspace. So it was a matter of, I knew my team, we could not cover the campus, not in any way, shape, or form. So I recognize the people, okay, I can trust this person, this person, this person. Okay, can you help your department out here? Can you help your department out here? Can you help your department out there? Obviously, there's going to be certain situations where, okay, only IT people can do it, but in other instances where it's just a low-hanging fruit, that's just another arrow in the quiver where you can just say, here, I can't get there. I'm going to deputize you just to say, here, help these people out, so I can actually focus on the bigger things.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of that as well. I mean, a lot of these people that are from the university that are here at the conference, have done amazing work as far as I'm concerned. I didn't do all this myself, so I'm not going to take all the credit. I mean, there's people here in the audience from our university that did a lot of this work. We've certainly stepped in when there was no IT in some of these departments because people left or other things went on in those departments and stuff. But, we've just tried to be consistent, and we've managed to make progress over all these years. That's going to speed up. Now things are going to start to become centralized at our university. So like I said before, now it's going to be on us to try and build trust with these departments that haven't necessarily trusted us in the past to try and get over those hurdles and things. So, all right, well, we got 7 minutes left. So I didn't get, oh, we got another question.
Yeah, I want to know how you manage user accounts and then from various departments, and then when you centralize it, the IT support, are you going to centralize the account?
Yeah, so the question was, even though it was in the catch box, how do we handle our accounts or user accounts on our machines and things like that? So for the longest time, we bound all of our devices to the AD, and about 5 years ago, probably due to a session from when I came here to the conference that Joel Renich did on Nomad, we stopped binding our devices to the Active Directory about 5 years ago. And so we went down the Nomad route. Like I said earlier, we've got 300 iMacs that power our math testing environment. So there's probably 10,000 students, I would say, a year that take a math class at our university. And so whenever they have a test to take for that math class, then they go to one of these labs to go take all those tests for that semester. And so that's all IMAX. They're really just glorified kiosks. They're running Firefox that's locked down. And, but we have Nomad running on all those devices. So we're going to be switching that environment very shortly before the fall semester starts, probably over to Xcreds. And and going down that route. Because Nomad, while it was great and everything, it got bought by Jamf, merged in with Jamf, and then while it's still open and it's open source, it hasn't really been updated a lot and things. So there are some quirks and issues that you have to know about. A lot of times things get blown away when there's a minor OS update on the machines. So then we also, what we did on all our one-to-one devices back in the day was we used Rich Troughton's script to unbind our one-to-one devices from the Active Directory and then to localize the accounts on all of them. So we use the script that Rich has up in his GitHub scripts archive to be able to accomplish that at our university. So that's how we're running. Like I said, we haven't bound a machine to the Active Directory. We have Duo two-factor on all our stuff for our students and our faculty and staff, tied into all sorts of services for VPN and everything else at our university. But we're using local accounts on all our one-to-one stuff, and then we're using Nomad right now for our multi-user Mac OS devices and stuff in that environment, so that we don't have to bind those. We went through a refresh several years ago and switched out all our Intel iMacs for that math testing environment to M1's iMacs. And so we didn't want to bind all those brand new machines and mess with all that to try and bind them, all 300 of them, to the Active Directory. And our Active Directory on premise is set up in a way that we have to pre-stage all the device objects and stuff. So it's not like we can just, set it up and it just magically creates the object and all this other kind of stuff. So it's a lot of headaches, and so that's why we went down the Nomad route back in the day and stuff. So hopefully that answers your question.
That's answered the question.
Since I'm sort of new to like Slack, I'm just wondering, within your true experience, would there be a little section on applying the, let's see, what is it? The actual e-brake on a vehicle?
So what now?
joking.
Yeah, okay, I got you. I don't know, but I could start a channel for that, Ken. I'll do that when I get back. I'll start up a channel for. Oh, is there a car jack channel? There's a million channels in Slack, but maybe there's not one for setting your e-brake, so I'll create one. All right, we've got 3 minutes left. If anybody has any other last questions or whatever, thank you guys for coming. And hopefully you learned something.
Thank you.